and the recording of the session will be made available online afterwards. It'll be posted on the Turn It On YouTube channel, and anybody will be able to publicly watch it from there. So if you do make a comment or if you turn your camera on, please remember that you're going to be recorded and that will be shared with others. If you want to ask me anything, you're more than welcome to unmute and speak with me. I'm happy to discuss anything during the session as we go through, and we'll have some pause points where you can ask questions, or you can save them up and ask them at the end. Or alternatively, you can pop them into the conversation, the speech bubble at the top, and I will come back and check those from time to time and do my best to answer them for you. We've got a varying degree of previous usage coming to the session today. Some people are really familiar with this, others are just coming along out of curiosity, and some people definitely want to get to use one of the aspects that we're going to cover today. So there's quite a range of abilities, but we will go through them, the opportunity to have a look at them and work out just how it's going to fit with your transformation in your school or the introduction of that new technology. My name is Martin, and I'm one of the cloud adoption consultants at Turn It On. My previous career was a teacher, and I still work with schools today and help them introduce new technology such as Teams and some of the tools that we're going to consider during the session. So we'll have a quick look at what Teams is and how then to use it to assign work. Assignments is one of the main focuses. We'll also consider one of the new features that's recently been brought in, which is reading progress. And then we'll have a look at reflection and questions. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to look at those three areas in a bit more depth. Just consider whether Teams is something you want to use for that, or whether you're going to have it complement more traditional methods that you use in school, or you may well have an alternative platform that you use. And what you're thinking of is getting rid of that and replacing it with Teams. Before we go into those areas, I also want to offer you the chance this afternoon to become a certified Microsoft Innovative Educator, or an MIE for short. We're going to gift you 1,000 points on a bespoke training code, and then at the end of the session, you can log into either the Microsoft Education Center, or it's being rebranded at the moment to the Microsoft Learn Education Center. Both searches on a search engine will take you to the same place, and where the fingers are pointing in the top right hand corner, if you sign in, the code that I'll give you at the end of the session, you'll be able to redeem to get 1,000 points, which will instantly make you a qualified Microsoft Innovative Educator and save you doing a couple of courses, because we'll have covered the equivalent during the session, and we can give you the code to do that as we're a Microsoft training partner. A lot of people that come along to these sessions will get codes and establish themselves as an MIE, and then they will go on to do other courses that interest them on the Microsoft Learn Education Center. And sometimes that leads to an individual in school that might have a responsibility for developing IT, or you're part of a transformation team, and you might go on to study your MIEE qualification. And we've got a course currently about to begin with that. If you've got somebody who's an ICT lead, somebody who's part of a change management team in school, somebody who's part of the leadership team, middle leader, suits lots of people, but you can come along and join us on that. And then that usually leads to people considering whether they want to be a showcase school. As I said, we'll give you that code at the end of the session, and once you're logged in, you can redeem that code, or you can just make a note of it and then use it and redeem it later. If you're watching this afterwards and it's a recording for you, the code will remain live. So whether you're here today in person or you're watching it afterwards, you can still redeem it, and you can still get credited with the 1,000 points to become an MIE. Back to Teams itself. So a lot of people ask me, why on earth am I going to choose Teams? What's so special about it? Why is it good or bad at whatever it does? I think the way to best describe it is it will cover so many functions in your school. It will make resources easily accessible from anywhere. It does support ease of communication, and it really enables the ability to collaborate, whether it's teacher to teacher or member of staff to member of staff, because this isn't exclusively for teaching staff. It's useful for everybody across the school, regardless of their role, from a site caretaker who might log in and keep a list or share a message with someone, right the way through to pupils or students in secondary school who may use this to complement working in class or getting homeworks or messaging their teacher if they happen to get isolated because they're isolating with COVID at the moment or something like that. Teams itself is accessible in so many different ways. I accept fully that computers, tablet devices, mobile phones are expensive, so you may only have one per household. But the beauty of Teams is that you can get onto it very, very easily. You can either install it on a computer, a desktop computer or a laptop computer, and that can be installed as an app that can be downloaded free of charge from the internet. Or you can install it on a Windows computer. Again, you can download the software and it's also available on the Windows App Store. Additionally, you can run it on other programs like Linux if you are someone who doesn't like to use Windows. But beyond that, you can run it quite successfully in a web browser as well. If you've got your device locked, it's a school provided device, maybe you haven't got permissions, well, you can open up a web browser. The new version of Edge from Microsoft is really good, as is Google Chrome, or if you're on a Apple Mac, Safari works perfectly well. If you have a pupil at home and maybe they haven't got access to a computer and they're joining a lesson, they're going to join a video call, then they can use a tablet or a mobile phone. Apple iOS or Android all have the app available to download. If they can't install the app for some reason, they can still join via a web browser. Absolutely acknowledge that the screen on a tablet or a mobile phone is a lot smaller than a desktop computer or a laptop. So it's fiddly if you're trying to enter work, but it's perfectly good for watching or having a look at homework or seeing a video if that's something that you need to have a look at. The vision from Microsoft is that Teams is a single hub and connects together all the areas of the school and all the functions that a school or an academy or a college or even a trust would need. So you can use Teams as well for trust teams, and it can be used as an intranet or it can be used alongside other programs such as SharePoint, and the two can be linked together. So at the beginning of this journey, there is a need to, after sessions like today, just to take a step back, reflect, think, either where are we now? What have we done with Teams so far? Was it the right thing to do? Do we need to reevaluate that? Or if we're going to start fresh and we haven't yet embraced it, what's going to be the best way to get using Teams? And very often it starts small and build it up bit by bit. As well as being a single hub to connect everyone, it's also a hub to connect everything together. You'll find that you can link in Office 365. So you've got Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It will open directly in Teams. You don't need to go anywhere else. So certainly when I've been teaching, that's great because my pupils don't get distracted with having to find a program in Windows. It all just happens in the one place for them. They could also chat to me if they need to. Normally the chat with each other is disabled, and there's a lot of configuration you can do on Teams for safeguarding reasons to make sure that pupils have certain functions and staff have others. And that's all perfectly customizable. You just need to make some decisions about it. And then if Turn It On or your IT support company, you can work with your consultant, or if you've got another IT support company, you just go to them and talk to them about it. Microsoft isn't limiting Teams to just Microsoft programs, and what you can do is plug in quite a number of other applications that you may be subscribing to. Maybe you're using Wakelet, or maybe you're using Kahoot for questions. All of those can be brought in and pinned into your team, whether it's a staff team or a class team that you use with pupils. Before I go any further, has anybody got any questions or any insights they want to share about using Teams, maybe getting it set up, getting familiar with it, or using it for the first time? Nothing at this point? Okay, well, feel free to pop anything you like into the chat. As I said, I will come back and have a look at it and see if there's anything I need to answer there, but I'm going to move on to setting assignments. First of all, we'll have a quick look at it in theory, and then we'll move through and look at the real Teams, and you can have a go at it as well if you wish alongside and ask any questions. So Teams can do many things, but you've got 4 different types of teams, and the one that we're going to focus on for the remainder of this session is what's called a class team. That's one you would use for teaching and learning purposes. Most commonly, it's for a whole class, but you could use them for interventions. If you had small group work, you could use them for after-school clubs. You could use them for breakfast clubs. There's lots of different purposes for having a class team with members of staff and pupils involved in it. But one of them, and one of the most common, even after the lockdowns and everything else, people that used assignments for setting homework have tended to stick with it. And where previously it might have been a homework book or a piece of paper or a class page on a website, because assignments work so well, you can set a piece of work, and it works best for homeworks where there's a period of time, such as a number of days or a week in between, or it might be a project that you're setting for a couple of weeks, but you can set the work there in assignments. You can give extra support such as rubrics to explain how you are expecting work to be completed and the quality of the work that should be submitted, which is shown there as a rubric in the bottom right hand corner of this slide. But you can also link out to other Microsoft programs such as OneNote Class Notebook, which we'll cover in a future training session. And OneNote itself is a massively powerful tool. Think of it like a blank canvas or a blank piece of paper, and on that canvas you can put anything you like. You can put video, basic text, you can ink into it if you've got a touchscreen device, you can have web links, but then you can control that further still by sending copies out to pupils or locking it so they can only read it, and it gives you a lot of scope. But you can also attach those to assignments and homeworks as well. Have anybody here had a go at using assignments? Anybody currently using them in their school? Anybody had a go at assignments and they want to share how things have gone so far? Not currently? All right. Well, with assignments themselves, you will need to go into Teams, find the assignments tab, and then go to create new assignment. And when you come to create a new assignment, as you'll see in just a moment, you can either create a brand new blank assignment, or you can create a quiz, and that links with Microsoft Forms, which is part of Office 365. Usually a quiz is around checking either prior learning and making sure it's secure. It might be around a subject, it might be around a skill, or it could be more of a summative assessment where you're seeing if learning was secure, and you want to set a quiz at the end, and the quiz is the homework and you don't link out to anything else. But probably you're going to use the assignment function at the top fairly frequently to create a new homework, and I'll show you how one of those builds next. The beauty of investing the time and using assignments is that for the next academic year, what you can do is reduce your teacher workload because you can use existing assignments, and you can also go back and pick up assignments from previous class teams. So when you get to the end of the academic year, a class team is what's called archived. It means it's no longer in daily use, but you can go back and reference it. So if you created an assignment in that previous archives team, you can go and drag it forwards, amend it, update it, refresh it, attach new resources, whatever you need to do, but you won't have to create it from the ground up. So it cuts down on workloads. There isn't a library where you can go and get assignments from currently, and I haven't seen anyone online with a resource because you can't save assignments as files. They are created as an entity or a product within Teams as you go through. So I think there's a good opportunity to swap over and go and look at Teams itself. So I'm just going to jump away from the presentation and swap screens a moment, and the assignments itself are pretty easy to get hold of and find. I'm just going to share that screen. I'll take one step back a moment. You should now see a web browser. So I'm using the Edge browser from Microsoft today. I'm not using the app or the software on the computer, just to show you exactly how easy it is to use in the web browser. If you've never done this before, to get logged in, you need to go to www.office.com, and it will take you to a sign-in page, and then you use your Office 365 account for your school. And if you're a member of staff, you're either going to land here, which is called the landing page, or you're going to go straight to your Outlook email in the web version. If you use the desktop version, the two things will mirror. If you get an email online, it goes to the desktop version and so forth. You can then use the app launcher on the side here to go and open Teams, or you can pick it up down the side. Some schools I've seen in the last week have got a new version of this landing page. Microsoft are updating it, so the apps are no longer down the side, but certain key Office apps are there, and you have to use the app launcher to go to other apps. So it may change a little bit over the coming month as different Office 365 tenancies are updated. But once you've got Teams open, you'll see any teams that you've got access to. And in those teams, you will have different roles and functions. I've got a couple of class teams, and I'm going to use a primary class team today, but everything I'm about to show you works identically if you're in a secondary school or in any educational phase. We've got special school, it doesn't matter, it all works in the same way, and it will all function in the same way. So when you come into a class team, you will see some areas over on the side here. You've got what's called the me space. These are things that you can interact with. And across the top here, you've got the we space. They're things that you can interact with as a class. And on the left, you will see quite quickly there's some key areas that we've already spoken about. And those key areas are assignments, their classwork, and also that OneNote class notebook, which we'll have coming up in a future session. But what we're going to do is home right in on assignments first of all. I'm logged in as a teacher, so this is a teacher view. If you're logged in as a pupil, it will be less cluttered and more streamlined, because what pupils don't need to see is all of the access that a teacher has. So if I was logged in and I went to assignments as a pupil, I would just see the assignments that I've got assigned, and I wouldn't see drafts over there. Drafts are only viewable as a teacher when you're logged in and you're creating assignments or homeworks for pupils to be able to come in and use. You can see here at the moment, I've got a few that are assigned. So if I was to go into the geography homework, I've got 2 of my pupils left to return their homework. And if I click on the return tab, I've got 2 that have handed it in. If I wanted to see what they've handed in, I can click on one of my students. And if they bothered to attach something here, this was a piece of homework where they had to bring back a worksheet and they weren't scanning it in with something like Office Lens. I would see the document where that picture is, and then I can give some feedback over here. That feedback is one-to-one, it's individualized. Only they can see it, not the whole class. So it's personal exchange between you and that pupil. And you can move between all of the other pupils that you've got in your class by just going across and then loading up there. So you might want to give them some prompts about what to remember to do next time. You have the option to use points, but you don't have to. And then you can return the work back to the pupil and they get their copy. And when they start their homework in assignments, they will each get their individual copy of the Word document or the PowerPoint, and they won't all be working at the same version, and they won't be able to see each other unless they physically log in and show someone else, or they turn their computer around if they happen to be in class and show someone else. So there's a high degree of privacy about that, people having the assurance that they haven't got their peers looking at what they're doing, and that it's only shared if you think it's warranted. And you do that as a teacher, maybe to raise standards in the class or praise and celebrate what somebody has done and achieved. If I just close that out, because that's the teacher view there. With assignments, you have all your live assignments there. Anything where you've returned all your assignments will show up in here, and you can see they're ticked off. So as a member of staff, you can keep track of live homeworks and assignments you've got out there. What it looks like, if I go into my imaginative writing, and here I've got a larger group, I can see the status of what's happening with my homeworks at any point. I can add those individualized feedbacks by clicking on there. So those pupils here have not done anything with it, not a single thing, and I might want to prompt them. I may want to put a reminder in my general channel over here. So if I go back to general channel, you've got these things called posts, which we cover more extensively in one of the previous sessions, but you can post to remind them. So you could start a new conversation down here. You could pop a quick post in there saying, just a reminder, homework's due on Friday. If you haven't yet looked at it, please make sure you go and do in your assignments. If you've got any problems, come and speak with me. I'm just going to jump back over to assignments. So going back into imaginative writing, see I've got absolutely no one at the moment that's returned, or I've returned to them. See I've got someone who's handed work in. Somebody's viewed it but not done anything with it. And this is still me as a teacher looking at this. It looks different for a pupil. So if I go to student view, this is how it would look. There's the title. I've given it a tag saying it's writing within English. Decided there's no points associated with this homework. Quick set of instructions, and then down here is the work attached. So it's very minimalized, and you've got other tools that are in Office 365 and Teams, everywhere in Teams. It will help with things like access to learning. So over here on the side, We've got a session coming up later this term about access to learning, but there's something called Immersive Reader. When you switch on Immersive Reader, if they have a learning need, maybe got dyslexia, what you can do is you can have that read to you by pressing the play button down there. You can also do things like change fonts. You can have line focuses, change backgrounds if they're visually impaired, maybe need a pale yellow background or a pale green background. All of that can be achieved. So again, for you as a teacher and reducing workloads, you can produce a homework once. You can get to it anywhere as a pupil, and you can then change it to suit your own learning needs. And all of that is contained in assignments. Now, to make an assignment, which is the only bit we haven't looked at so far, you press the Create button down the bottom. There's the pop-up we looked at in the slide deck. So if it was an existing previous team or existing one from a colleague and another class team, because you can share assignments between classes, maybe a 2-form entry primary school, you've got a dual year 3 class, well, there's no point reinventing the wheel. Go and borrow your colleagues and then amend it for your class. Maybe you need to adjust the pitch of it, but it saves creating it. Quiz is where you can make a quiz and it will bring in a Microsoft form. You can have a list of questions. And the beauty of having a quiz is it's self-marking. So you've got no marking as a teacher from that homework, although you will invest the time in creating the quiz in Microsoft Forms, but then you can use that again. Most people go to the top option, which is assignment, and up will come an assignment. So it may be that we're going to call this assignment class reading. Let's call it that. Here is where we can add those tags for categories. So if I click it, there are some previous categories I've used before for reading and writing. If you wish to add a new category, you can click it there and then it'll become available in the list. But this is really about reading. So just as a signpost for pupils, yes, it's English, but it's reading within English that we're looking at. So class reading is in there. And then I can click on the instructions box. The instructions box can have as much or as little as you want, regardless of educational phase I'm teaching in, whether I'm in primary, middle or secondary or special school. I would always advise breaking it down into bullet points. It seems to be that pupils are able to small chunk and take on pieces of information and more successful at completing homeworks by having those bullet points. So it might be read the attached paragraph. I've got a feeling we might end up with a file with more than that. And if I could help, I could type today. And then it might be answer the questions. And I might switch bullet points off is don't forget to ask for help. Posts if stuck. Really quick, really concise. Also in here, you can add links. So maybe if the source to read was on another website, you could link that website in. That can be in the instructions as well. You've got lots of basic formatting tools. So you can bold, italic, you can underline things. There's certain basic word processing that you can add in there. And then underneath, here is where you would add your resources. So you can link to other apps, and this is a recent addition. If there are other apps you subscribe to, maybe use Wakelet, maybe use Flipgrid for video feedback. You can link to those so that it will automatically be attached to the homework. You can create a new file and it will automatically then open up Word or a PowerPoint. So you may want to give them a template, a structure in a PowerPoint if they're going to be doing a presentation in a very traditional sense, with a title page and then maybe a framed content page and some other slides. Could be that you want to open up a OneNote class notebook, or you may just want to attach. And what you can is go across to your OneDrive. Your OneDrive is your personal file storage where you can go and pick it up. So if I was going into teaching, I might say, look, I'm going into my English folder, and then in here there's a section of Harry Potter that's in the Commons that we can borrow without copyright and we can use for educational purposes. So students can't edit that one, but if I do want them to edit it, I click on the dots on the side and I can change to students edit in their own copy. So I can have control over that. View only as it currently is, students can't edit. If I want them to be able to take a copy of it and add to it, maybe they're going to answer some questions that's on there, then they can do that. But for the purpose of this, I just want them to read it. The questions would be in another document, and I think I'll open up a new document and I'll make it a Word document, and I'm going to call it very simply answers. I'm going to press done. That's now attached there, and they can put their answers in there. So it's really quick and easy to get things in. Other ways to attach: you can link out to the class notebooks. Most people are using class notebooks for daily teaching. I know that I moved away from using all board software, and I keep all of my planning, my pupil and student facing learning resources, everything goes in class notebook, because if I need to get it out, it's really quick and easy to do. But I can also attach it to things like assignments and homeworks, and then anything I've done in class is no longer in a paper book. It can go home and it can be used anywhere, and I haven't got to go and do a photocopy of it. You can also do links just like you can in the instructions. You can link out and get content in other teams, or there's a new section called Reading Progress. And Reading Progress is the second part of what we're going to look at today, and we will come back and pick that up a little bit later. Here is where you would decide if you're going to add points. You don't have to, and it's certainly something I use sparingly. If I was preparing for an assessment of some form, I might say, look, here's 10 questions. I'm giving you 3 points per question. Here's some points, but I certainly would not use it on a regular basis. It's so demotivating. Tends to be a lot of people get stressed about it. So choose it, use it when you want to. We spoke about rubrics. Rubrics give that depth of explanation. You can see some previous rubrics I've got in there. So there might be one that I've got before that I could use, information text, though this isn't in this case. Can upload a rubric if I'm coming in from another school or a colleague's given me a rubric, or I can add a new rubric and create one. Might just pop into information text and grab that. So you give it a title, you give it a description. Again, you can have points on your rubric as well. I've given it level of challenge, hot, spicy, and mild in my school that I'm using here. So in this example, I want them to demonstrate their ability to find evidence and extract it from an information text. And then I'm going to give some description of what I'd expect to see in the way of answers or depth of answers or quality of work handed back to me. And I'm just going to attach that as an example here, although the information text is not what we're looking at this point. So there's my rubric. If I want to get rid of it, I can just press the cross on the side. And then it's more organizational. You can assign within your team. If you've got the rights to do so and you've got access to other teams, so it might be to turn it on class team. I'm going to tick that as well there. And then you can see I've got 2 classes. So instead of going in and setting your work twice, wasting loads of time, you don't have to. You can assign the same thing across a number of classes. You can also decide who you're going to assign it to. It can be the whole class, all students. It can be individuals if you want to target this for something as an intervention or extension, and you decide what the use is of that. Or you can have a group set up. Maybe it's a science club and you're going to set some work as a project that's going to run through that club afterwards. Decide on the day it's due in. So I'm going to have mine due in for the end of this week, Friday the 4th of February. And I do want it in by the end of school, so I'm going to put 3 o'clock. And then you've got other options such as, do you want the assignment to be added to calendars? Overwhelmingly, again, whichever educational phase I've been working within, all pupils and students say it's really useful to have it in their calendar as well as in their assignments list, and they get used to accessing their calendar on the side, and that's their personal Outlook calendar. And you can also have a notification that will appear over here in the general channel of the class team. So with all that set, I'm just going to save it currently. And that's another bonus. You can prep all this in advance. If I press save as a teacher now, I can go to drafts and I can pick that back up whenever I want, along with all my other saved assignments. So there's my class reading. When I want to, all I do is I'll press assign, which we'll do in a little bit, and then it will go live. And instead of it sitting in my drafts, it will go into my assigned, and pupils will get a notification over here that they've got a piece of work, such as the imaginative writing project there, and they can view the assignment from there. So there's lots of different ways they can get to their homework. View assignment in posts, which is where the main discussions happen. Assignments over there, or they could go and view it in their calendar in their me space on the left, and they could go and pick it up from there because it will be assigned on the day that it's due in. We've covered quite a bit there in assignments so far. Is there anybody that wants to ask anything or about assignments and how they're set, or anything that you've already done with assignments? It would be really useful for others to hear. Not currently? Okay, we will nip over and we'll have a look at reading progress. Reading progress is something that was introduced by Microsoft just before Christmas, but it's really powerful. I think before we go into how to do it in here, I'll briefly switch back to the presentation just so you can have a look at it. All of these things I'll hang around at the end. If you do want to have a go at using any of them, I'll stay here in case you want to ask any questions or you hit a barrier when you try to have a go at them. And then that way we can make sure that you get any issues cleared up before you leave on the day. But I'm just going to go back, as I said, and have a look at the reading progress at the same time. So reading progress is just sharing up now. The PowerPoint comes up on screen. Show you a quick video, and then from there we will go through what it is and why it's used. So once they've got reading progress, the pupil on the screen will have a go at reading a passage of text, which you'll see, and then they click I'm done. And from AI, it marks itself. You can find fluency of reading, there's a particular issue, but pupils, because they're reading more anyway, they grow in their confidence in reading. It helps to support traditional picking up a book, but it gives you some way to measure what's going on with their reading inside. So the fluency is really key here, but also that you can use it for different types of text in English. It might be for a fiction piece, it might be for information text. There's lots of different contexts that reading progress can be used, but it then feeds back into that insights dashboard, which will show you a real version. So it looks at the accuracy of the words they're reading, how many errors that are made. It checks the speed of reading. It also checks the fluency of reading. Things like phrasing, if they're pronouncing a word incorrectly, they will all get included. It really helps to wrap in comprehension around the outside. That fluency, vocabulary, phonics, and phonemes, they're all there together. And what it does is it analyzes all of those in one place. You're never going to have this replace traditional teaching methods, but what you can do is use it as a tool in your arsenal to help you manage the class. Now, it might be, instead of you hearing everyone read yourself, you might use reading progress as a tool for some pupils or students to have a go at that independently. That could be set as a small group activity. You might set it as a whole class homework because you're trying to get a baseline and a feel for how things are going with your class, because you're going to target interventions thereafter. But the fluency is really important. It picking up those struggles that those individual pupils are having, and then inform you so you're better, you got a better chance of picking up what to do about it. So as a teacher, you're going to create, the pupils will then read, and you're then able to review. And what you can do is track it, because it will go back into what's called your grade book, and we'll have a look at your grade book when you're over there. So with creating an assignment, it comes back to what we've already done. So I'm going to swap over and go back into the live version of Teams itself. One moment, just swap over there. So if we go back to assignments and we'll go to the draft that we created earlier, we'll pop back into class reading, and in here I've got the ability to attach something else. And what I want to do is attach reading progress. So launches reading progress, and you need to have a piece of text. You can browse a sample library and you can pick something up from there, or you can import your own document. So I think what I'll do is I'll browse a sample library. The gradings at the moment are based on American gradings, and you'll need to get your eye in and have a look at a few different texts, but they usually, I find, about a year group out to the UK education system. So for instance, a year 4 in the American system here could be about a year 5 in our system. But as I've said, that doesn't come across as an absolute rule. So you've got for your texts for different year groups. So I'm going to say a year 4 and making this 4. And I might want to have, let's pick an information text. It's quite a high level one, but I can preview it as a teacher. So here is some information text, and it's all about safety of electricity. I quite like that, so I can select it, but if I didn't want to, I could press back or cross and I could go back and have a look at some others. So I'm going to select that one. In it comes, I could go and have a look at the student view, but I think I'll do that at the end. Over on the side here, you can determine the number of attempts. So if you just want them to have a go at this once and then accurately see what they can do on their first attempt, then leave it, drop it down and change it. But you can say 1 attempt, 2 attempts, or unlimited. You can choose the number of times they can have a go at passing through this. I'm going to leave it unlimited at the moment. You can also enforce a time limit to read within. There may be a good reason for that. It might be you're trying to make sure they can get through a set amount of text in a certain amount of time. But most of the time, I leave it as no limit. You can also go through the pronunciation and see how sensitive it is. You can have it as very sensitive, so it picks up on every little sense of the word that they're saying, or you can leave it as less sensitive, or the default, which is just the standard. You can have video on, so it records them, but if you consider that to be a safeguarding issue, or you know you've got people that are really sensitive about appearing on video when reading, knock the video out, take it off if you don't want it available. So we go to next. And what it will do, it will create the reading progress assignment, and it attaches it. So down here is electricity. Now, I don't need my Harry Potter anymore, so I could get rid of that if I wanted to, and I'm going to go and remove it. Still going to leave my answers because I want them to answer questions about electricity there. That's still relevant, but what I've done is I've swapped this from a piece of fictional text to now some information text. I can go ahead now. I have everything else set how I wanted it, so I can assign it. I'm going to press the assign button. It's pretty much instant. So if I go across, it will come up and it will move out of my drafts list and into my assigned list. If it doesn't happen to appear, which it doesn't on this occasion, there we go. It's come up. I've got my notification. That's my notification down there. I'm going to go over to the general channel. There we go, we've got class reading, and for pupils, and it appears for me as a member of staff, you can view the assignment. They would view their own personalized version, even clicking on it from there. If I go back to assignments, it should have updated. There we go, there's class reading. And if I click on it, I can see that I've got all of my class. I'm lucky I've only got 6 pupils that I'm teaching. I could check how it views as a member of staff. That's what it looks like. There's my materials to reference because I didn't give them an ability to edit it. And then I would gradually get them to work through it. Now, what it looks like from the other side is, let me go to imaginative writing, and where I've got somebody that's handed it in. So Ella, bless her, she's really on it. She's very keen, and she's got this homework back to me fairly promptly. So I'm going to go and view Ella's handed in version. So we're doing a bit of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory here. I left the video on for my class. This is an example of the sort of report that you would get. Ella's taken 1 attempt. There was just over 1,000 words here. And what I've got is a marked version. It's marked up text, which tells me things like color-coded mispronunciations, words that were omitted when they were reading, things that were inserted, or repetitions of text, or where they've self-corrected as well, because they've misread something and they've reread it correctly afterwards. So Charlie was mispronounced initially, but then it was repronounced. So I could give my feedback and I can return it. There's no points here whatsoever. But what I can do as a teacher, as well as getting the scripted marked up feedback here from the artificial intelligence marking that's listened to the reading, I can listen to it myself. So if I press play, I can watch the video of Ella reading. I can get a really good feel, because although I haven't got that pupil with me and I'm not sat listening to them read, I've got them reading. I'm just listening to it at another point in time, but I've also got the insight from the reading progress tool. And then from that, I can plan accordingly as a class teacher. It might be that I've got my fluent readers group. It might be that I've got my intervention group. It might be that I've got all sorts of different pods of pupils working around my classroom, and it better informs the progress that they're going to make, or the way that I can support them if they need it. You can also use Insights. If I click Insights, and what Insights will do when it loads up it will give me a data dashboard essentially. This one is in demo mode, so it hasn't got Ella's feedback. You have to buy an additional license to go with your Office 365 to get the insights. The functionality up until now has been absolutely free, but this requires an additional license that's added on to your Office 365. What you can do is you can get a feedback or an insight based on the one pupil, or you can go through and you can look at a group of people. So this is staying on one. You can, for instance, see words that they found challenging. You can look at the accuracy rate over time. You can look at their average words per minute. But you can then switch between genres that they've read, fiction, non-fiction, information, text, and so forth. And you can also look at different levels. So level 400, 500, and 600. And you can get feedback across the last month, today, the last week, and so forth. So it depends how much you can evaluate as to whether you subscribe to that additional feature, but Insights is up there. If you don't subscribe, it will just appear in demo version and you will get this reading progress. So that's reading progress. Has anybody got any questions about reading progress and how that links with assignments? I'm going to go over and check questions in the chat as well. There's nothing in there. Does anyone want to unmute and ask anything at all? No? Okay. I will go across to the final part of today's training, which is reflect. So we've got the ability when we start a conversation in posts to get pupils to reflect. So to get more editing options on a post, you click the A in the pencil, that's the format tool, and then you'll get multiple other features available. In the bottom toolbar, and we won't cover everything today, it was in the previous session we went into how to use posts in more depth. If you scroll across, you've got something called reflect. So what I could get them to do is reflect about their assignment or reflect about what we're reading. So I'm going to click on reflect. It will launch the reflection pane, and this is a fairly new feature that Microsoft put into Teams only in the autumn. So there's a question there, how are you feeling today? And there's a number of questions that you've got that you can pick from. So I'm going to pick the one that I feel is most relevant. I think I might say last assignment because that was what reading was about. You can then say the level of privacy. So you can have it only, you can see the students' names or no names at all. Thinking about privacy of if parents are looking at this. You can have the duration that the reflection's open for. So I might say I'm going to have it for a couple of hours because I'm going to use it during the class. The last assignment was around reading. And then what I can do is I can post it and the pupils can then give me some reflection. What I'll get is a graph about the feeling in class. If I pitch the text too high, if they didn't enjoy the content, maybe it's because they're not particularly fond of knowing about electricity and they'd rather be reading something else. That feedback will enable me to have a discussion. It might give me some insight into, do I need to mix things up? Do I need to come back tomorrow and replan what I was going to do? Do I need to have a different starter because there's clearly a need here that's class wide? I'm going to press send. And then what that will do is it will send, if I discard that one that I was creating, it will send a reflection into here and then people can start voting. So if it was, they were that happy with it, how do you feel about your assignment? And then I can come in here as a teacher and I can start to see the number of pupils, because they will all be able to get to it, who voted, and I would get a percentage build up as well as numbers individually at the same time. Again, Insights is available if you subscribe to it, but you don't have to use it because you can use Reflect perfectly okay on its own. I've done it in lots of ways. Reflect could be used for homework. It could be used to take an opinion. You might be debating. It might be something social and emotional. It might be you're looking at mental well-being. There's lots of different reasons that you can use Reflect, but it's a really handy tool to have in your arsenal, and also a handy tool to link back to assignments and homework as well. I'm going to flick back over to the presentation, and then we will continue through towards the end when you can have a go if you wish, and I'll stay here where you have a go at that, or you can go away and try yourself if you want to have a go outside of this session. So I'm just going to move away from Teams and jump back into the presentation. There's some useful resources on the Microsoft Education Center or Microsoft Learn Education Center, so you can Go in and pick up a course called Transforming Learning with Teams. Also, the Supporting Learning Initiatives with Staff Teams, if you want to take something like Reflect and use that to balance staff moods and feelings about something. There's also a really good course on remote learning, and we're not strictly delivering remote learning on its own anymore, but we are doing a lot of hybrid where maybe we've got class teachers working from home because they're isolating and their classes in school, or maybe they've got a vast amount of their class that are out and they're dual teaching in a hybrid mode from the classroom, but also certain lessons in the day to pupils that can't be in class, they're at home. Those courses also are some of what we've given you the 1,000 points for today. So there's a lot of the resources that back up what we've covered in the session are found in those training sessions. So the code itself is on screen there at the top, the one beginning with T hyphen. What you need to do is go to the Microsoft Education Center, or the Microsoft Learn Education Center as it's currently known. Go to the top right hand corner, and where I've got the initials LA in the left screenshot, it will say sign in. You can sign in with your Office 365 account that you've got from school. That's your email address and your normal password. Once you're signed in there, you click your initials. There'll be a little box that comes open and you can press redeem code. And then you can go and paste that code into the box. I'll also paste that code into the chat now as well. I'll go and grab that and pop it in for you. But has anybody got any questions, or would you like to have a go? I'm more than happy to stay here while you have a go at reading progress or setting an assignment. Very much open to that. Want to be able to help you. So I'll pop the code in there and that code will come over. There you go. There's the code if you want to copy and paste it rather than type it from screen, so you can redeem it and get your own accreditation of 1,000 points to become an MIE. But it's over to you at this point. Would you like to have a go? And if you do, I'm happy to help you with that. Or have you got any general questions from the areas we've covered in this session? Setting assignments in Teams, the reading progress element of using that with assignments, or the reflect for using with assignments or in general classroom practice. You can unmute and talk to me, or you can pop any questions into the chat if you wish.
Martin, hello, John here. I was quite interested in the reading progress. Do I have to sign in to Microsoft Education to have a look at that?
Yeah, so you have to be logged into Teams itself. Let me jump back over, and you can do that either by downloading the Teams app and signing in with your Office 365 account, or you go to a web browser, and that's where you go to www.office.com and then go to the Teams app in there. I'm jump back over and show you that.
I mean, yeah, I'm in the Teams app, and I was trying to find it.
Right, let me jump in. Trying to find. Let's see. There we go. So reading progress itself is inside assignments. So have you got first of all, have you got a class team that you've got access to?
I can quickly bring one up. Yeah.
Up there, or if you haven't got one, you can. If you've got ability to make one, you can create it. Where I'm waving my pointer in the top right hand corner.
No, I've got one. Sorry, I was trying to open it as an app on its own.
It isn't an app on its own. It's only available inside of assignments.
Right, so I've gone into assignments and I should be able to locate it there.
Yeah, so go to create an assignment, and then underneath that, if I can click the right button, down the bottom here, where you're doing your instructions, attach, and reading progress is just down at the bottom there. And then once you're into reading progress, that's where you can either upload your own text, or you can go and browse the library. Very often you've got your own text in mind, so most people either bring in a Word document or a PDF, and then reading progress will work quite nicely from those.
Okay, Martin, that's super. Thanks ever so much.
No problem at all, John. Any other questions from anybody? Nothing at all? More than happy to help anybody. If you've got anything you'd like to just get cleared up while I'm here, and I can do that for you. I will stop the recording at this point as well. So if you are joining us on the recording, thank you very much. And for everybody else,